Good evening, everyone. Greetings to everyone. Uh, I extend a warm welcome to all of you, whether it is morning or evening. And I am Sri Sudarshan. I am the Director of Communications in PMOGA India Hub. It gives me an immense pleasure to host another captivating episode of PMO Insights series, brought to you by PMOGA India Hub, the esteemed local community of PMO Global Alliance in India. We are excited to present a stimulating panel discussion today featuring startup founders, startup mentors, and industry experts. So, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge and also introduce our event partners, who is IAPM, International Association of Project Managers, and MSME and Startup Forum Bharat, who have been instrumental in making this event possible. Without any further delay, let's dwell into the captivating insights and discussions as we pass the baton to Palash Gupta. Over to you, Palash.
Thanks, Sudarshan. Good evening, all. I hope I'm loud and clear. Yeah,
Yes,
hi.
Palash.
A very good evening to all of you. And as Sudarshan says, good morning, good afternoon, based on the location from where you're joining. Myself, Palash. Uh, Let me just start with a 30 seconds quick introduction of self. So, myself, Palash, and I had been working for Fortune 100 companies for 20 plus years, and currently I'm one of the co-founder of one of the AI companies and volunteer for Indian startup ecosystem as part of NASSCOM Deep Tech Club. I played the role as part of NASSCOM's National Product Council as well, and doing mentoring for the startups coming out of some of the IITs and IIMs and otherwise. So this is a quick one about myself. To set the context for all of us, today, when we are discussing in this esteemed forum, India is the home for more than 63.4 million MSME units and more than 90,000 DPIIT registered formal startups. We are the third largest ecosystem in the world as far as the startups are concerned. India, just it's not only the number of startups or the number of MSMEs, just to give you a glimpse of it, the value which is being generated by these organizations, the Indian MSME contribution is more than 30% of India's GDP, and close to 40% of the exports come from the MSME sector in India. It also employs more than 113 million Indians, which is nothing but close to 11 crore, 12 crore Indians, which are already employed as part of MSME. Okay, so this is how it is. For India to achieve its 5 trillion economy dream, MSME and startup sector needs to play a very, very important and significant role. Okay, when having said that, the importance of startup, same time it's highly challenging and very pertinent for these MSME and startups to survive and scale, that it is essential for them to build investor and shareholder confidence, get access to the patient capital, ensure effective risk management, streamline transparent decision making, attract good talent in the competitive market, and above all, foster and give a very sustainable growth. All this cannot be achieved without having a very strong plinth and a very strong system and processes in place. And that is what we call it as the corporate governance. And that is what is our idea of discussion today. Okay, with this initial context to discuss the importance of corporate governance and how to ensure that it with the limited available resources which are there with the MSME in startup, we have our esteemed panel to discuss and to give us the way forward. We have with us Nivarti Jairam, the Chief Data Officer for Society General Global Solution Center. We have Fusun, and this is to give you the context that the challenges of MSME and startups are very similar across the globe. She is joining us from Istanbul, Group Head of Agile Office and 2022 PMO Global World PMO Leader. And we have our experts here, Rajiv Bajaj, CEO of Bajaj and Bajaj Corporate Chambers. Welcome all of you. Welcome to the esteemed panel.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you,
Nivarti,
Palash.
Fuzun, and Rajiv.
Thanks.
And I'll request you in the same sequence, Nivarti, Fuzun, and Rajiv, to introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, thank you, Palash. Thank you, everyone. I'm Nivarti Jairam. I'm the Chief Data Officer for Society General Global Solutions Center in India. I'm an executive coach and also a transformation leader, having been involved with enterprise transformation for more than 2 decades now. And I'm looking forward to this discussion pretty much with other experts and learn from their experience as well as Palash's experience as well. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Welcome. Fuzun.
Mhm. First of all, thank you very much for your kind invitation to PMO Global Alliance India Hub. I'm very happy to be here and greetings from Istanbul, Turkey. Well, after graduating from the university, I worked in finance sector extensively in Turkey, two banks and two insurance companies in IT parts, of course, for nearly 20 years. But in between those banks and insurance companies, I worked in telecommunication sector, in manufacturing sector in Brussels, Belgium. And I had been working in a lot of roles and levels. And lately, I'm the transformation director for an open text partner, Continuous Software. At the same time, I'm a lecturer in two universities and providing project management, agile and design thinking courses. Also, I'm a coach and mentor, and especially for ladies from the universities and in their first years in organizations for the increase of number of ladies in technology sector. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rajiv Bajaj. I'm CEO of Bajaj and Bajaj Corporate Chambers. I have been working for various companies, and out of that, a few multinationals, Japanese multinationals also for a long time. And for the last 3 years, I am also in the startup ecosystem. I mentor a lot of startups. I work hand in hand with Walmart for their MSME development program, and I have my own consulting firm where I coach the startup and MSME entrepreneurs. Having done a lot of work in this area and being a company secretary, recently I'm also having the position of chairman of MSME and startup board of Institute of Company Secretaries of India. So these are the roles which I play at the moment. Thanks to PMO community for inviting me, and I'm sure we'll have a good interaction and mutual learning. Thank you.
Thanks and most welcome. Just as a hygiene thing, I just have a request that other than speakers, maybe all other, I request you to go on mute. There are some disturbance, unfortunately, so we can follow that. I think that will be helpful for all. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So thanks, and this is our esteemed panel, friends. To start with, Nivarti, I would want you to come and express your views and your opinion based on your vast experience. I think one challenge with MSME and the startups always face is the lack of financial muscles or the resources, lack of organizational strength, because these are the ones which are in the budding stage, right? So, first of all, how important it is to have the corporate governance in MSMEs and startups? And second important point, which I would like you to comment, is that within these constraints which they have, how to set up a good governance structure uh, within the constraints of financial and the organizational strength. Nivarthi, over
Yeah,
to you.
thank you for that question, Pulash. I think the most important thing from an yeah, can you hear me? Okay, so I hope you are able to hear me well. So from a corporate governance perspective, I think it's organizations, whether they are startups or MSMEs, to be set up. A lot of times we get into a space as startups and MSMEs that we look for people to perform the governance than performing the governance itself, which may be seen as a constraint in most organizations. So the idea for a start should be to be able to find the right roles in the organization than people to set up governance. That is one of the important factors, I would say. And corporate governance is all about doing the things right, correct? So are we really doing things right? Are we following the right ethics? Are we following the, focusing on right elements from an organization perspective? Are we focusing on the ecosystem from a organization perspective? So when you look at that, I think corporate governance plays a pretty significant part in helping organizations do the things right. That is the most underlying point from my point of view, Kunal.
You are on mute, Pulash.
Sorry. Yeah, Nivarthi, so if you want to add that if the financial strength or the financial muscles are not there, what is the bare minimum governance structure an organization can adopt?
Yeah, I think, financial aspects come into play only when you are looking to have specific people focusing on the governance, right? So it is not necessarily required. You can always dual hat and still focus on governance. It's about having the right need and right focus than having more number of people involved in governance, right? So it's not like I need 10 people to set up corporate governance. If it's a startup, even the CEO or the founder can take that responsibility to be the person heading the corporate governance. Nothing wrong with it. So I don't see financial constraint as a reason not to set up corporate governance, which most of the times is made out to be, right? So it is the intent rather than the finance which is a constraint. So most of the times corporate governance is seen as something that is restrictive than being an enabler. So, as startup founders, I think we need to shift our mindsets to say corporate governance enables me to do right things and it helps me to sustain longer by following the right set of practices. I think that is the view which needs to come in rather than looking at money being the factor that is constraining.
Okay. Thanks, Nivarthi. I think it's clear for our audience that uh, corporate governance role, it is more of the role, not about the people. I think that is a very clear and sound message. Yeah. Fusun, coming to you, you being PMO expert, now how you really link the corporate governance with the PMO governance and how both of them can go hand on hand.
Mhm. Well, project governance management includes the processes required to ensure that various elements of the project are properly coordinated to ensure the project is delivered successfully. On the other side, corporate governance involves a set of relationships between a company's management, its board, its shareholders, and other stakeholders. Corporate governance also provides a structure through which the objectives of the company are set and the means of attaining those objectives and monitoring performance are determined. So, the governance of project management concerns those areas of corporate governance that are specifically related to project activities. Therefore, they are very closely tied. Effective governance of project management ensures that an organization's project portfolio is aligned to the organization's objectives and is delivered efficiently and is, of course, sustainable. Governance of project management also supports the means by which the board and other major project stakeholders are provided with timely, relevant, and reliable information. To me, the PMO should be predictable, and for a corporate, it's very good to be predictable in means of financials and the portfolio, etc.
So let me play the role of devil's advocate. What you said just now, the linking of the PMO and the corporate. But I come from the engineering background myself. Okay, and though I have played the role of the project management head also, but I come from the engineering background. And when the organizations do focus on their routine businesses, whether they are in technology or anything else, right? At times, PMO is not considered to be the essential element. I'm sure this feeling might be there in many of us, right? So, how you see that the PMO can add value and PMO can transfer from a PMO to a VMO? I mean, something like a value management office where it's like the value is very clearly articulated and visible.
Like yourself, we hear a lot of executives talk about how their PMO can add value, but people aren't always clear what they mean by that. And sometimes it is seen as the cost center, as you know. And if even if they do know what they are striving for, the PMO team sometimes struggle to work out what it really looks like in practice. I saw it many times. But if we look at the PMO, how to create the value, first of all, PMO keep people focused on what's important. For example, scope creep. It's every time we are our problem, scope creep in our projects. Project teams sometimes take a sideways turns. One of the key ways that the PMO can add value is to keep delivery teams focused on the main objectives. For example, earned value management. It is very most common way to do this. The project team, of course, with the support of project management office, assign a financial value to milestones, and then these are tracked during the project. Here you can see the value. Also, PMO can keep people focused by asking some questions, carrying out informal peer reviews, and querying project reports. As you see, PMO keeps people focused on what is important. Another value creation is in the adding the right level of governance. Top reason for introducing a PMO is to improve governance. In fact, this is one of the KPMG research results. However, it needs to be the right level of governance, because sometimes value doesn't come from wading through lots of pages of authorization or processes, jumping from one stage to the next. Sometimes we spend a lot of time just for the methodology, not the aim of the project, the goal of the project. We are just trying to fulfill the methodology, but this is not the value creation. The value creation is to aim to goal the project results and do whatever needed, as you know. Therefore, the right size of the governance is very important. Even better, allow project managers to tailor the governance approach, of course, with the parameters set by the PMO, is the best fit type. And removing waste from project management process is one of the right thing to the right level of governance. And it is very good thing to show how the PMO adds value and is flexible to the needs, for sure. And
Okay.
to me, the only last thing I would like to say, the last thing is facilitation of the risk management. To me, risk is the most important thing in project management.
Okay, I think a very pretty long answer. To me, I'll just summarize probably what you said is that uh, PMO is also about constructive creation, and at the same time, it is also about constructive killing, right? PMO should also play a role in killing something constructively which doesn't work or which does not add value. Thanks, Fusan. Uh, just to bring back to some of the challenges which we were talking about MSME and startups. I mean, all of us who are part of this ecosystem, and Rajiv is here. So, Rajiv, to ask you the question, last few years, we have seen some challenges. If you see Sterling Biotech financial irregularities, which were up the tune of 14,000 crores, and then we have seen 2020 Rotomec Global having the similar kind of issues coming up where the transactions were 3,000 plus crores were overstated. Startup side, we have seen some issues and uh, I mean, the incidents are keep on adding to this list. Bharat Pay, Go Mechanic, recently Broker Network, where the financial statements are first, and lot of such challenges. So, based on your experience, Rajiv, I think the challenge which looks to be the decision making is really concentrated in the hands of owners or very few of them, and there is an absence and weakness of a formal board of structure. So how you see that, what kind of role the BOD or the advisory board plays, and how to select the members for those advisory board, what kind of expertise they have based on your experience. I think this will be very valuable for us.
Yeah, thank you, Palash. Basically, if we see the negative side, we have to see the positives as well. There are many examples which I will mention later part of the answer that, the guys who are really doing well on corporate governance. So first of all, I think all of us agree with these situations and incidents is that corporate governance is the most important thing for any organization. You can, if your sales goes down, you can still survive. But if your governance part is not right, then you face the situation like Satyam and many others faced. WorldCom is an international example of that. So we need to first make sure that the strategic decision making is in the hands of the board, and the advisory board is well chosen. That's the most important aspect. And of course, as my co-speaker mentioned about the risk part of it, risk has to be managed, and the risk oversight has to be there. You must have a very clear view of what is the risk element we have, and how to build that accountability and transparency into the entire organization, and try and evaluate the leaders who are working. So 360-degree evaluation is also required by the Indian Companies Act. No, so but that exercise should be done with a lot of conviction, with a lot of the freedom should be given to the people who are doing that exercise without any intervention by the top of the company. Also, I think we need to protect the shareholders' interest, and that stakeholder, interest management has to be perfect. Of course, advisory expertise of the board is very critical. We have good examples like HDFC, Infosys, Tata Group. So all these are positive examples, which are, of course, we should be very aware of what is happening in the ground. But that is where I think professionals like us come in, and we need to actually make sure that these boards are efficiently chosen, and of course a very methodical way of choosing the qualitative team for the advisory boards is very much essential. Yeah.
Thanks, Rajiv. So, uh, actually, recently I was talking to some of the startup founders, and I'm bringing back this again and again. Okay, because I do also represent that community. I mean, the challenges which anyone faces, right? Uh, One is that the compliance and regulatory environment is really tough. I mean, for them to understand all type of compliances, labor laws, taxation requirements, all kind of reporting obligations, all of them, right? They, if they are coming from the technology side, they might lack the limited, I mean, they might lack the financial expertise, right? Financial statements and all those kind of things, right? One point we have just discussed, the weak board structure or something. Another point is that access to the capital, and they are dependent on the external funding, which at times come from informal sources, right? It could be even from the family and friends also, right?
Yeah.
And another challenge which is there is the lack of succession planning, because many of these MSMEs or startups are family run businesses at times, and they don't have some of these. Now, there is a saying, right, that everyone has a plan till he or she gets a punch on the face. So, Nivarti, to you and Rajiv, first Nivarti and then Rajiv, maybe, if you can suggest that how to really measure the health of governance. I mean, everyone says that everything is compliant, and suddenly we get a negative surprise, and then either the stock prices crash or something. So, how to measure the health of this governance? That is one. And what kind of mechanism can be put for the regular evaluation and some improvement which can be done in the corporate governance practices? Nivarti, over to you.
So, from my point of view, the practices that we looked at from corporate governance perspective, primarily, my voice is clear. Sorry, is my voice clear?
No, Nivarti, we are losing you.
Okay, so I'll let others respond. Let me just check my connection again, please.
Sure, sure. So, Rajiv, the same question to you. How
Yeah.
to measure the health of governance?
Well, for measuring the health, I think we need to look at the corporate governance framework, which is there in the organization. You know, what is the kind of overall structure we have? What kind of board independence level is there in the organization? And also, what is the composition of the board? Who are the people who are representing? There are people who carry a lot of, name for themselves to be representative on the board. So, and of course, corporate governance report as per the Companies Act uh, requires that you have to show the attendance, how many people attended the board meeting. So all those are kind of indicators which show that what is happening in the board and how the board is functioning. A lot of people, they don't look at those reports very seriously, whereas I think law provides for a lot of tools where governance has to be managed. And of course, the level of transparency and disclosures. If you look at the SEBI LODR guidelines also, they require lots of disclosures to be made on regular basis, and whether the company is following or not. And if they are caught, there are heavy penalties. So we need to look at that aspect also, and have professionals supporting them for all these areas. I think that's the key, because uh, professionals know the best how to protect the shareholders' rights, how to protect the auditors' independence, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the key.
Yeah, I think just to come back and add something more to what Rajiv mentioned, I think one
Uh,
of
Nivarti, can't hear you.
the
Hello.
important
Hello.
things
Nivarti, we can't hear you.
is
I think
to manage.
I
Okay.
think he had a bad connection. So I'll add one or two more points.
Yeah, please.
The whistleblower mechanism, no, that's the worldwide accepted tool, which is if that is in place, you are giving chance to the people to raise or blow the whistle whenever there is a problem. And of course, how you are actually managing your legal issues and controversies, and how you're clarifying them. And that also adds to the transparency of the organization, and I think that's important. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Rajiv. Just a prompt to all our participants and audience. Please do share your questions so that I can take them up in between itself, as and when there is an opportunity. Please do share your questions based on the available window. Okay. Yeah. Uh, Rajiv, I think that was a really great take, that how to ensure the health, and you have also talked about the whistleblower and all those things. So, Fusan, uh, you coming from PMO, and I think you have touched upon the risk related. So I have a very direct question on to both of you, that how this governance really facilitates and helps in risk mitigation. A very quick 1 minute answer from both of you.
May I start, Rajiv?
Yeah, please.
The PMO can take an active role in facilitating. And facilitating risk management involves identifying who should be involved, setting up and running workshops with the right people, capturing risks and actions, and following to ensure that action plans are being followed through. This is the shortest answer that I can say.
Okay.
I'll add to it. Basically, one, of course, clear roles and responsibilities are very important. How you are actually defining those responsibilities for your team, and of course, what kind of risk governance committee you have, what kind of risk reporting and other practices you follow. I think those are the key elements where the whole framework is to be tested, and that is how outsiders who are looking at the organization, they also evaluate.
Okay. Uh, so since we have talked about the processes a lot, we have also talked about the board structure, right? Now, I'll just put a very simple analogy that probably all of us do carry this driving license, right? And when we drive, and especially I come from Bangalore, so it's known for all the traffic conditions, right? There is a clear demarcation between having the valid driving license and having the right driving sense. I mean, when you see that probably most of the issues which you face on the road, or let's say the traffic jam, right? It is because of the lack of driving sense. Maybe I do carry the valid driving license. So it just touches upon the softer aspect of it, right? We can keep putting a lot of processes, structures, and governance, right? And as sometimes people do criticize that speed breaker not only reduces the accidents, it also impacts your velocity, it also impacts your efficiency, right? So I'm bringing to the point where I'm talking about how to foster a culture of ethical conduct so that the overall dependence on the structures is less, and the compliance and the applicable laws and the regulations are imbibed within us. So this is a very important question. I will request all of you to answer that, how to foster that culture of ethical conduct, especially within these MSMEs and startup, where a lot of opportunities or the challenges are there, where like you can do a mistake.
Yeah, let the lady go first. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, we need to start with leadership. For the effectiveness of the compliance program, a high level commitment is very important. And also aligning compliance with enterprise risk management, and lots of training and testing and employee assessment, maybe, and not to ignore compliance mistakes, and put an effective technology in place.
Yeah, I think to add to it, basically, she mentioned a lot of things. Ethical leadership is the most important aspect. If the leadership is having that, setting the tone for, organization to follow the ethical conduct, everybody, right from the, uh, guard outside the office of the company to the CEO, will follow that. So that is the most important aspect which should be there in the organization, and that's to talk about the core tools which are there. Of course, the code of conduct should be in place. What happens with all these startups? I think, Palash, we have an experience that these guys sometime become big very very suddenly, and the practices and the process they have to follow, they are missing. So somebody mentor like us should be there with them to guide them what are the best practices in corporate governance and ethical conduct, and how to ensure that. So training and education, I think, has already been mentioned, and of course, reward and recognition also is another aspect where you should reward your employees who show good conduct, and of course give them a lot of importance, and of course transparent communication is also critical in this.
Yeah, so I think the key is that culture is always top down.
Yeah,
Once
yeah,
you walk the talk, then probably it percolates within the team. Yeah.
absolutely.
Nivarti, are you back?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
think I am back. Hopefully, you're able to hear me now. Sorry for that. So, yeah, I think one of the things is moving away from rewarding performance to rewarding behaviors. If you do that consistently, I think that will be encouraged across the organization. That is one point. And the second thing, as you rightly mentioned, culture always is driven top down, right? So we lot of times as organizations define values that we want everybody to embrace in the organization, but what gets missed out is the behaviors that we want to see which are associated with those values to be exhibited, right? So that clear communication on the behaviors that we expect everyone to exhibit to live by those values, that is one thing which is very much needed. And of course, what is required also is consistent reinforcement from the leadership. A lot of times we get these communications one off, and then later on we don't look at them back again, but the consistent reinforcement from the leadership to everybody in the organization is very critical to embrace that culture in the system.
I think very, very apt. I could see there are questions coming in this group and on LinkedIn, and there are too many questions. I just saw one flash from one question from one of my good friend Karthikeyan. I'll just request Sudarshan to put it on chat box. Let me take up first question, which is again come. This one talks about as a startup founder, we are too focused on tractions. We are putting all our resources to ensure our startup actually starts up. A very nice one. Is there any agency that can be outsourced? I mean, where we can outsource? Who takes care of all the compliances?
Should I answer?
Yeah, yeah, please, Rajiv.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there are a lot of compliance tools available these days in the market where you can install those tools, and they will take care of they'll pop up various compliance requirements to you from time to time. If you have for example, some deadline approaching, or some return to be filed, or all those things can be taken care. And of course, the checks and balances can be built, and there are of course professionals also available providing these compliance services. So it is better that if you are a startup founder and you are too much focused on technical aspects, better to have a mentor or a partner or a consultant working hand in hand with you on compliance requirements, and invest in compliance. Sometimes people think it's a burden to invest in compliance, but I think compliance is the most important aspect.
Okay, thanks, Rajiv. Yeah, so just to add, I think Rajiv has answered. And if you see, there are new age businesses which are there to cater to MSMEs and startups on compliance front. And believe me, they don't put so much burden on pocket as well. Added to it, please do join some professional communities, because at the end, none of us is as strong as all of us. So you'll find that like-minded 10 other startup founders, and how they are using some of their needs and how they are getting it solved. That helps a lot, because all the challenges are very very similar for most of us. Yeah. Now coming to the next question from Karthik. As a startup founder, we are too focused on. Sorry, I think this is not the Karthik's question. Yeah, maybe I'll just take any. I would like to know. I mean, the question is from the gentleman. I'd like to know how to plan strategic IT governance plan.
Should I start?
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
please.
it's for you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, alignment of IT with business goals is very important, and an IT strategic plan must be aligned with the business goals for sure. Another thing is IT services and technological roadmap, communication plan, governance, best practices, and measure what I've achieved. Yeah, I mean OKR. I mean, goals and metrics are very important in order to plan the strategic IT governance.
Okay. Revarti, do you
Yeah,
want to add?
yeah. Just possibly, I think when a lot of times IT governance is more focused on technology than business. That's a anti-pattern that we always see. I think when you talk about governance, it should be more holistic than looking at IT and business being two separate pillars from a strategy perspective, right? So we look at IT as an enabler again, rather than looking at IT to be a cost center for that matter in organizations. So I would say look at what the business objectives are, and start with the alignment and understanding of business priorities for us to build the strategic IT governance. As long as that is taken care of, it solves a bigger conundrum of fighting for the budgets, because we like to focus more on our own priorities than what is a priority from a business perspective. I may be sounding a bit different for IT people, but that's a fact I think we need to look at as well.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the question from Karthik. I got the hold of it. So there are two trending aspects right now, right? One is sustainability and one is artificial intelligence. All of us know, all of us are using. I mean, from uh, what you say, November onwards, I think we are all fan of lot of artificial intelligence tools which are there, generative AI, right? So do you see these impacting MSME and startups? And secondly, how this interplay with the corporate and PMO governance? So maybe there are two questions into it. So one is on the sustainability and artificial intelligence. How will they impact MSME and startups?
Should I go for it first?
Yeah, yeah, please, Raj.
Sustainability, of course, is becoming a big market, for all these startups to thrive. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think uh, we can solve a lot of issues and problem statements which are there existing in the whole world these days. So I think you pick up anything and try and work on it. So that'll be a good opportunity. And artificial intelligence, of course, we should know how to utilize that intelligence for our favor. So of course, for MSME and startups, it will definitely help in making things more structured and better. So I think from that perspective, I see it as a very positive thing where MSMEs and startups can utilize AI tools. And the AI is a business as well for many. So I see a lot of metaverse and other startups coming in this area who are actually thriving. Yeah,
Yeah. So AI is a good servant but a bad master, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So you should know
So
how to use it.
yeah. So in fact, just to add to it, when we talk about the successful business, and especially when we talk about the product business, we always talk about the sweet intersection of what we call it as desirability. That means that your product should be desirable, someone should be ready to use and pay for it. Feasibility, that means that with your organizational structure and the strength which you have, you should be able to build it feasible, right? It
Yeah.
should be that. And the viability, that means that it should sustain and you should be able to make some profit out of it. The fourth aspect which is becoming important is that when you think about all those three, desirability, viability, and feasibility, also think about the responsibility. That means build something with the responsibility so that it is sustained, not only sustained, it is also good for the larger one.
Yeah.
So I think when we are talking about the corporate governance, this is something really important, that what you deliver should be there for the society is good for future. Yeah. Thanks a
Absolutely.
lot. Yeah. I have received one more question. Maybe we have some time to take a couple of more questions. So let me just take. I would like to know how the future of PMO looks like. Sorry, maybe this is this question. Who would want to answer?
For PMO
Maybe
expert,
we
no?
can answer the future of PMO. Susan, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. I think there will not be any PMO anymore. There will be VMOs, value management offices, starting from. Already it has started, in fact, because value is the most important thing when we are managing projects, which means that the methodology is not the aim. The effectiveness and the customer happiness, everything is more important than the methodology. Therefore, I think PMOs will turn into VMOs, value management officers.
Okay, and there is one more which I will request you and Nivarti to answer is like, but we are talking about the small companies, right? How to ensure that the corporate and the PMO governance are ingrained in DNA of the organization from the initial stages, from the inception itself.
Yeah, probably I'll go first if it's okay. So I think we need to look at them more as enablers for us than constrainers. That is for a start. I think that is the most important thing. And secondly, when we look at corporate and PMO governance, they should be more complementary. We should not look at them to be conflicting. So how can it's all about doing the right things and doing the things right when you think about corporate and PMO governance, right? So from that point of view, they should both complement each other so that the organization gets the maximum benefit out of what they are doing. And that's primarily very, very important for startups and MSMEs because every penny that you are investing, how best you can make anything out of that for the organization and also your customers as well, right? So for a start, look at them as enablers and then look at them being complementary than being overheads for the organization. That would be my take for them to ingrain successfully.
Fuzon?
Should I add an
Yeah, please,
example?
please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
example of Infosys. Infosys made certain disclosures in their annual report, even when they were not mandatory. So they were the leaders in actually opening up the doors for corporate governance and showing the way to others to follow. So that kind of leadership is required in, especially in corporate governance.
Yeah. And in fact, if you see, I think all of us will see that the Infosys, since the time of its listing on stock market, has always been fetching much higher valuation for the similar kind of financial result than any other company. So
Yeah,
corporate governance does add value to the stakeholders, shareholders, founders, everyone beyond the imagination. So brand has its reputation. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, it does build credibility for sure for organizations.
yeah. Okay. Uh, do we have any other question? We are just reaching to the time where if any other question is there. Yeah, I think there is one. Can you please mention tools and techniques that can be used for corporate and PMO governance? Quickly, all three of you.
Susan, you can go first.
Okay. First of all, of course, we are using, as I mentioned, earned value management is a very strong tool, and reports, status reports, steering committees, risk tracking, risk lists, and stakeholder management. They are very important tools, in fact. And looking to some softwares for tracking tools, I personally very like Microsoft project, and HP, XHP, PPM tools very much, and you can have a holistic view of the everything related with the project.
Yeah. So, so basically, board evaluation tools are there. There are a couple of tools which give you assessment on various committees functioning. Um, there are various requirements even by the law. For example, Companies Act requires independent directors board meeting to be held, direct meeting to be held separately. So all these tools are there for better governance, and of course, how to implement them. Code of conduct, whistleblower, I already mentioned. These are the things which we should follow, and definitely they show good results.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So just to
Before
add to the
not only the tools, maybe you can add some high level frameworks saying that this is how it may work. Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
yeah, so I think annual declaration framework that we usually have for the committees and the board members, which is essential because many times outside of the system keep changing. I think to get an annual declaration framework for the board members from a governance perspective is something which is very much important for any organization. And then looking at conflict of interest from time to time, that is another important thing, and most importantly getting the diversity into the system. Most of the times, while we all say that yes, every board at least should have one woman director, but can we get more to get a better representation? I think diversity would play a big part as well in bringing greater mindsets into the system also, right? And that will also mean you're getting different opinions than being stuck to a single line of thought process. So cognitive diversity or gender diversity, you can talk about different diversities. I'm not just restricting it to gender, but it's important to look at diversity as well as a framework.
Yeah.
So a good
Yeah.
example is Toyota. In 1996, they started the advisory board apart from the board of directors, and Dr. Manmohan Singh, our prime minister, was also part of that, and a couple of other functionaries were there on their board. So Japanese company adopting that way back in '96. I think a lot of learning for all of us.
Yeah, I think very important point. Thanks, Nevarti, to bring up about the diversity. It's about giving opportunity to all the underrepresented sector, and believe me, it's not an obligation, but it strengthen the whole board, it strengthen the decision making, it strengthen because the variety of thoughts, variety of cultures, variety of ethnicity, everything is being represented. Decision making is much more stronger. Your as an organization, as a startup or MSME, your solutions are much more closer to your audience or your consumers and customers. I think a great point to added by Nivarti. And friends, I think I could cover almost all the questions. So great discussion. To summarize, I think all of you have given a lot of insights. I think all of us can conclude that though there are lack of resources, but speed is nothing without the control, right? As they say that the fastest car is not the one which has the best accelerator, but the fastest car is the one which has the best in class brakes. Because if you know that how you can brake it, you can really go fast, right? And as starting of this session, I was talking about that our MSMEs and startups are empowering the nation by contributing towards our 5 trillion economy dream, and accountability, transparency, fairness, responsibility, which are the key pillars of the corporate governance, added to the diversity which our friend has brought, will give the business growth which is needed for a startup to sustain and scale. We need to adopt a multi pronged approach and adopt the principles, policies, and practices along with a very strong ethical culture. PMO has a very key role in defining, participate in defining, and implement and sustaining the corporate governance. Thanks to all our esteemed panelists for enlightening us with a very pragmatic take on corporate and PMO governance. And as we always say that we are a developing nation, I'll just leave with the last thought that to transform India or to transform the nation, we should not think that, or we should transform from the development of MSMEs and startup towards the development led by MSMEs and startups. So the India being developed and the development is led by MSMEs and startup. With this, thanks and over to you, uh, please.
Thank you, Palash. Such an valuable insights that has emerged from this wonderful panel discussion today. This wouldn't be possible without the support of Linda Ottman, Chief Communication Officer at IAPM, Dr. Manoj Kumar Shah, Founder and National President of MSME and Startups Forum Bharat, Dr. Amit Parikh, National President, MSME and Startups Forum Bharat, and all the panelists, Rajiv, Fusun, and Nivarati, and moderator Palash, for the brilliant insights and sharing their knowledge. Our special thanks to all our engaging participants who could make it. Those who couldn't, you can watch the recording anytime on LinkedIn or YouTube. We look forward to another episode of PMO Insights series soon. Stay tuned. Till then, goodbye and happy weekend.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.